Hey y'all, it's Michael Mercedes and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about IV infusion nursing. So currently that is what I do in my nurse role. So I wanted to kind of go over the qualifications, pros and cons, what my day-to-day duties look like as an IV nurse, because a lot of people have been getting into this field and they are very curious about it because a lot of people are trying to leave the bedside nursing setting, and I don't blame them because it is crazy. So I'm gonna be going over IV nursing today. So if you're interested, make sure you stay tuned. Okay, so if you don't know what IV infusion nursing is, basically it's a nurse who dedicates their role in starting IVs and starting infusions. The setting is different depending on what your role is. I know that there's oncology IV nurses that focus on like chemotherapy, different IV clinics for people that are undergoing special treatments. And in my case, I give IV infusions with vitamins. So basically, my patient population are people who are generally just looking to stay hydrated, or patients that come in that might have had a hangover and they need some relief the next day, or even somebody who just kind of wants maintenance and who's an athlete and they want to make sure that they're on top of their vitamins and their regimen. So basically that's what I see most of the time. Sometimes I get like stomach bugs. Sometimes some people just know that they're super dehydrated and they come in. But generally our population is healthy individuals. So we really don't see anybody who's of high acuity, which is actually one of the pros of being an IV infusion nurse. If you're looking for a lifestyle that's a little bit less stressful and not as high acuity as the hospital. Okay, so now that we have covered what IV infusion nursing is, I'm gonna go over my day-to-day duties. So basically what I do is I clock in and I take account of all the medications and vitamins that are on board in the med room. And so basically after I do that, I check to see what the schedule looks like. And depending on what the schedule looks like, say it's busy, then I start prepping and burping bags of fluids so that when those patients come in, the bags are already burped, I just have to prepare them and put whatever vitamins that they want into the bags. Basically that's what happens. When the patient comes in, I take their vitals, I go over their medical history, ask them questions, allergies and all that kind of stuff. And once, based off of what they tell me their history is like, is gonna determine what vitamins I can or cannot put in the bag. With the vitamins, it's mainly vitamins. We do have 2 medications on board, which are Toradol and Zofran, but everything else is vitamins and antioxidants. And so basically, once they tell me their order, I prep their bag, I start the IV, and then I set their infusion rate. And so basically in my downtime, what I do is I'll stock different fluids. I might put labels on bags. I'll stock any new orders that come in. If it's tourniquets or tegaderms or different vitamins that come in, I'll put them up. I'll take account of that. I'll make sure that the rooms are clean, that there's no blood anywhere. I'll restock the carts, and pretty much that's all I do the whole day. It's very repetitive. It's very nice when the flow is very consistent and I have like a patient every 30 minutes or 2 patients every 30 minutes because it keeps me on my toes. But that is literally all I do. Okay, so now that we've gone over the daily duties, we're gonna get into the pros. So I did mention a couple already, but one of them is the fact that it's a very low acuity setting. So most of the patients that come in are generally healthy, generally a lot happier because they're not going through anything that's that serious. The documentation is very minimal, whereas in the hospital, you're documenting like head to toe or doing specialized areas. The only thing that we're documenting is the IV site and any like crazy medical history that would be related to the infusions. And then also if anything were to happen during the infusion, we would fill out an incident report. So that is a pro. Another pro is the fact that the environment is very calm, very peaceful. We have music playing throughout the day, which is really cool because that's not something that you have in the hospital setting or bedside setting. So usually it's like pop music or hip hop or R&B, anything that's kind of upbeat. So that kind of makes a difference mentally with the role because you're not really stressed. And I mean, the worst thing that could really happen is if somebody has an infiltration or if somebody has an allergic reaction during the infusion, which I've never had, knock on wood. Another pro is that there is a lot of opportunities to get breaks. If there's not really anybody in the store at the time, then We can go to the bathroom, drink water, eat food, usually the essentials that you don't get to do in a bedside setting. But there are times where it gets super busy and it is hard to kind of fit those things in, but generally we do find time to have breaks. Another cool thing is that this role is very independent. You don't really have people looking over you or watching over you every second of the day, because generally it's one nurse for the whole store or that day. Sometimes we'll get 2 nurses if we think it's going to be a super busy day. And when I say busy day, usually each nurse handles about like 25 to 30 max patients a day. Sometimes it's 10 people depending on who's all coming in that day. Usually it's one nurse working at a store. I think the max that I've ever seen has been about 50 people, and we had 2 nurses on board that day. So yeah, it's a very independent role. The cool thing is that we do have a doctor that's on call in case we have any questions, or if we're unsure if we're able to give something to the patients. So that is typically a cool thing about this job. Another thing that I love about this job is the fact that it is set up like the hospital. So it is open Monday to Sunday. So I still get that randomized scheduling that nurses get in the hospital, which I like a lot because I like working different days each week. I don't like my schedule being exactly the same. I like being off sometimes on Monday, or I like being off sometimes on the weekend. So it works well with me. Full-time at my job is 4 days a week, which is not bad at all, considering the fact that it's not bedside. Our hours are typically 10 hours. Sometimes it can go a little bit over just if like a client is still getting an infusion, but it is 10 hours and we're able to pick up extra days. There is a thing called backup days where, say they might need an extra nurse, you're on call just in case they need you, or if they go and do house calls. Another pro is the fact that I've been able to network with a lot of people with this job. And I think it's because in the hospital setting, usually people are kind of in a very bad state to where they don't want to talk, they don't want to communicate or express how they're feeling or what they're doing, blah, 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 unless they're being very vulnerable. But in this kind of setting, since everybody's generally healthy, everybody talks about what they do, the things they're interested in, the things that they're involved in. And I've been able to network with so many people that way, especially in healthcare and a lot of other areas that I've been dipping into. So that's been a really cool part of the job. Okay, and the last thing that I think is amazing about this job, I don't know if every other place offers this, but at my place, nurses are able to be tipped. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I didn't even know nurses got tipped until I started working at this type of job, which is really cool because you already get your hourly pay or whatever you might have set up for your contract on top of tips. And that's been a cool part because a lot of the times, like, nurses are not leaving work with money like then and there. So yeah, I really love that part of my role. And I love the fact that people are actually willing to give it, because a lot of people are scared of needles. They're scared of IV infusions. So when you set up a good infusion or an IV, people are very, very appreciative. So yeah, that covers all the pros. As far as cons, I would say there's only a couple. I know I mentioned the fact that we have backup days and house calls. I don't really like doing house calls or being on call for backup because you don't know what time you're going to be called, or even if you're going to be called. So you kind of have to work your way around possibly going to work, which gives me a little bit of anxiety. So yeah, that's a con. Another con is the fact that there are hard sticks at times to where you can't really get somebody, or you might have to send somebody home. I haven't really had to send people home like that, but it does dip into your time if you have multiple patients coming in at one time and you can't get somebody stuck. It kind of holds back the schedule, which sucks because then it kind of pushes all the appointments back on the schedule. The last con I would say is that because we're not in a hospital setting, we aren't getting the traditional benefits. So the benefits that you would typically see in the hospital, we're not most likely gonna get in a place like that, or even PTO or things like overtime pay and stuff like that. That is like a hard thing because I was used to that in the hospital setting, but to me it's worth it. It's worth the lack of stress and work-life balance. So yeah, those are my cons. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else negative to say about this role, But those are some very important things to think about if you are thinking about getting into IV nursing. Okay, so into the qualification. Basically, they just want somebody that can start an IV. If you have a lot of experience with IVs, I would definitely recommend. If you're working in the ER setting where you're putting in a lot of IVs, or if you're in a surgical setting, they typically look for people in that arena. However, if you are good at starting IVs, or you have started plenty and many and several IVs, then I would definitely recommend this position. I see that a lot of nurses are doing this part-time. Me personally, I'm doing this full-time because I couldn't go back to the hospital. So I'm technically like in a transitional period. I don't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. This is just for now until I figure out my next step in my career. Basically, good IV skills. Typically, they look for nurses who have had at least 1 to 2 years of nursing experience. But if you're looking for a part-time job and you're good at IVs, I would definitely recommend, because it is so easy. And when I say easy, it's literally the same thing that you do every day. It's very repetitive. Okay, so that covers this video for IV nursing, IV infusion nursing. If you have any questions, make sure that you leave them down in the comment section, and I will try and get to them as soon as I can. Also, make sure you hit that notification bell and like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more content that is similar to this. And I will see you guys in the next video.